Okay, terrific. Well, we might as well go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone. And for those who don't know me, I'm Casey O'Brien. I am the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Success and Transformational Initiatives here at SUNY System Administration. And I want to welcome all of you to our very first session in the Transformation Fund Community of Practice series. For those of you who were closely involved in preparing your campus's Transformation Fund proposal last summer, you'll recall that one of the key dimensions of the Transformation Fund process would be for System to provide a space for campuses to share best practices for how they're using transformation funding to support economic mobility, transfer partnerships, essential student supports, and other topics that align with funded strategies across the system. And not only will this series offer you an opportunity to hear from each other about innovative ways to address shared goals, but we're also going to be inviting content experts from a variety of fields to share best practices in more national contexts as well. So today we're absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to host some terrific speakers who are going to share their transformation funding and how it helped them enhance their campus's micro-credential offerings. So I'll introduce all of them in just a moment, but I do want to take a time to thank Jennifer Snyder and Lisa Raposo from the SUNY Center for Professional Development, which now falls under SUNY's Office of Student Success. Many of you know Jennifer and Lisa, but I'm just so grateful for their support in arranging this series for all of us. Before we do get started, some housekeeping. We have a pretty large agenda, so I'm sure many of you will have questions throughout the session, but as Jennifer indicated, please do feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat, which we will monitor throughout the session. But we'll also have a more kind of open mic opportunity to ask questions and hear from some of our presenters at the end of the presentation period. So we hope to leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end. Without further ado, though, our first speakers are from SUNY Canton. SUNY Canton is currently one of 25 SUNY campuses using transformation funding to replicate ASAP and ACE, but a significant portion of their funding is also dedicated to their micro-credential programming. So here from SUNY Canton, we have Dr. Peggy Cook, who serves as the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, as well as Dr. Liz Brown, who is the Executive Director for the Center for Workforce Community and Industry Partnerships at SUNY Canton. So thank you both for being here today. And again, if anyone has questions for the Canton folks, we'll have time at the end. And please join me in welcoming the two of them while they share a presentation about their micro-credential work. So take it away.
Okay, well, we'll start with me and let's see if I can get this up and running. Can everybody see that?
Looks
Yes.
great. Yes.
Okay. So Casey has already introduced us, so we'll just jump right in. I'm going to talk about the development of our micro-credential program and then turn it over to my colleague Liz, who will talk about some of the more innovative stuff that we've been doing over the course of the last year. So Canton approved a policy and procedure for micro-credentials in the spring of 2020 following SUNY guidelines that were put out by our colleague Cindy Proctor. The policy itself required that our work be vetted through governance, and we worked very closely with governance on Canton's campus to develop this procedure. So the Academic Standards Committee developed the proposal policy and the procedure. What we require of our folks who are proposing micro-credentials are two forms. One is a micro-credential proposal form that asks people to consider a variety of basic questions about what and how they're going to be offering material to prospective students. So they're asked to designate whether the proposal is, or the credential is credit or non-credit bearing. They must specify learning outcomes and put in place an assessment plan, talk about time to completion, and most importantly, whether this is something that is stackable to a degree. And for our purposes, we were also very interested in whether this is a micro-credential that has been proposed with our industry partners. And Liz will talk a little bit more about that. We have a cover sheet that goes along with the proposal, and that is primarily to document the approval chain as the credentials come up through our academic programs, make their way through governance, and then finally are approved by the administration. So the approval chain basically takes the credential from the programmatic or departmental level to the school level and then to the college level. And I think the sharing of information about microcredentials has been very beneficial for our campus, because very often we've discovered opportunities for cross-pollination of interests, for sharing of courses. So some real interdisciplinary work that has been spurred by just simply being aware of the fact that people are proposing these credentials. For the approval process, these are vetted through our curriculum committee, which is a standing committee of our college assembly, which is the governing body on campus. Once it's approved by the assembly, it then goes to the executive committee, which is the strategic planning committee of the president, and it's then signed off on by me and by the president himself. I think probably the overarching guidelines or principles that have guided the development of our microcredentials are that these are chunks of learning that must be convenient for students. So things that they can learn in months, skills and competencies that they can learn in months, not years. It's important that they be stackable, so students gain credits towards more advanced degrees, whether at the associate or the bachelor's level. And we're looking now at some of our non-credit bearing microcredentials to see how we can grant PLA for those, so that it's possible to document in that sense. And they must be portable. So these are recorded on transcripts so that students can take them wherever they go. As we started to really get into microcredentials, I think one of the things that very quickly became apparent to us is that we needed a really good landing page for people, especially those from the community, to learn about our microcredentials. And I am not ashamed to admit that we kind of begged, borrowed, and stealed from other web pages, not only within SUNY, but within some of the non-SUNY institutions as well, to construct this page. And the landing page takes students immediately to the information that they most need to know. So what are the credentials that are available? What's involved in learning them? How long do they take? How much does it cost? How do we register for these? So by clicking on any of these tiles, students can be taken directly to that information. Right beneath that, we also have tiles that reflect the different microcredentials that we currently offer. And when they click on each of those tiles, they get the specifics. So how many courses that this microcredential is comprised of, when those courses are offered, and again, redundant information on how to register for the microcredentials and how they should be paid for. In terms of growing our program, I think things really started to take off in 2022 as we came out of the pandemic. At that point, our campus had 5 microcredentials. These were housed primarily within our suite of criminal justice programs. We now have 20 and are literally adding them on a monthly basis, and they reflect a diversity of programs across campus. The funding from the Transformation Fund has been used to develop those credentials and to put in place the systems that are now allowing us to start offering badging and documentation for them, as well as to accept forms of payment for non-credit microcredentials as well. Now I'm going to turn it over to Liz, who will talk about the importance of our industry partnerships and the development of our microcredentials, and also something that I feel is very innovative for our campus. You know, I think one of the big things is getting people interested in doing a microcredential. So why go to the bother? So we've developed a series of micro courses, and you can view these as teasers. They're sort of designed to highlight a pathway from tasting or exploring a topic to an actual degree. So Liz, I'll turn it over to you and continue to advance the slides.
Thank you. So as Dr. DeCooke alluded to, we established something called Micro Course Monday in January of 2023. And we use that as a pathway to give someone a tasting of a topic. And then if they were interested in learning more, we had a direct pathway to a course, a micro-credential, or a degree program that would be able to satisfy their need for more information. We've also tied that same pathway into workforce development. And one way that we've used the transformation funds is in spring of 24 and fall 24 on our schedule. Our micro course Mondays were linked to topics aligned with the transformation fund. So in the fall, we had mentioned that we were going to look at drones. So we have a micro course Monday addressing that. And that helps us to get feedback from our attendees, which could be students, faculty, staff, or community members. And it helps us in figuring out what is the industry standard, what's the industry need, what type of micro-credential is best going to fit our students in helping them, and then helping people from the community who are looking to upskill in their current job. So we've tied those micro course Mondays into our micro credentials, which we've then aligned to a degree program. So this is one we did in the spring. This was aligned with a topic under the transformation funds. We talked about clinical and rural health research. The instructor for that larger course is the one who conducted the micro course. Again, we invited everyone from our campus and our community. I should mention Micro Course Monday, you can attend in person, but it's also streamed live and then recorded and posted afterwards. So on the left of the screen is what we show our participants. And then if you're still interested, we link to the micro credential associated with that topic, and then the 4-year degree program. And on the right is our roadmap, which goes from our micro course Monday to the specific course that this topic is from, to our healthcare leadership micro credential, and then finally into our 4-year healthcare management degree program. So if anyone attends, they have this information, and then it'll give them that roadmap to learning more information, but also feedback so we can determine which way to go with some of our upcoming micro credentials that we were awarded under the transformation funds.
Well, I'll stop sharing now. And we'll turn it over to the next group of presenters.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much, Dr. DeCooke and Dr. Brown. Please harbor your questions or throw them in the chat, and we'll keep a log, and we'll allow our Canton folks to respond at the end. I'm particularly interested in the micro course idea. That sounds very innovative. So hope we have time to talk a little bit more about that. But without further ado, I would like to hand it off. We have 2 more presenters today, and the second series will be Dr. Malatesta and Dr. Wagner. Dr. Malatesta serves as the Vice Provost for Academic Innovation and Student Success and the Dean of Undergraduate Education at the University of Albany. She's joined too by Dr. Christine Wagner, who serves as the Interim Vice Provost and Dean of the Graduate School at the University at Albany. So they're going to talk a little bit more about the micro-credential work happening at the university. And Dr. Malatesta, Dr. Wagner, the floor is yours.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen, and if I could just get a thumbs up if we're good. Yes. All right. Very good. So I will share the screen and advance the slides as we go along. And then just kudos to our friends at Canton. That was just fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. So we'll jump in and just start, as Casey said, a little bit of background on the UAlbany micro-credentials, right? I think, again, using the student guidance, as a number of campuses are, they are designed at the campus level really to support students, bring in working professionals, really focusing on skills and competencies, focusing on field-specific areas. What is it in a particular field that is of interest to that industry? How can we partner with them to help our students be prepared as they move into those spaces? We have obviously industry aligned our competencies, but we're also using Credly badges. That has become, I think, as a lot of folks know, the industry standard. We are keenly interested in the tracking, displaying, and verification of the information that is collected, is utilized for the skills badges or for the badges themselves. And this is a great way because they are stackable, they are trackable, they're digital, and they're portable. And so this is a way for our students and for anyone taking the micro-credentials to track and verify that they have in fact taken and completed those skill sets. Two types of micro-credentials are where we have focused at this point. So the for-credit and the non-for-credit micro-credentials, the for-credit being stackable, of course, into the bachelor's or master's degree with a real interest in how do we propel and entice students to move toward that stackable master's component, get them into the master's area. And then the non-credit, we've done in a couple of different ways, which we'll talk about throughout the course of the presentation, more industry focused, more skill and competency based focused. But a bit of background, and again, I think like Canton, it was really important for us to work with our faculty governance, work with the university, work with Senate, undergraduate and graduate academic councils. It was a new concept for the university, 2017, 2018. What were we going to do? What was that going to look like? How does that impact academics? And so, of course, the Senate and the faculty wanted to be involved in those conversations. And I give a lot of credit to Dr. Deborah Jelinas, who at the time was our Vice Provost for Applied Learning, who really pushed us into working with in our work with the Senate and developing a bill. And so it became a bill that went through the various components and really set the tone for what micro-credentialing would be at UAlbany, set 3 types of pathways. So our professional pathways, skills badges, and continuing education, starting to identify how we were going to articulate and roll out our engagement with micro-credentials. So after 2019, we've continued to advance our work in this space, and now Dr. Wagner and her team oversee the micro-credentials and can talk a little bit about the review committee.
Thank you. So we, as a result of this bill that Dr. Malatesta just described, we currently utilize a micro-credential review committee. The committee is comprised of 5 members, and they review all of the for-credit and not-for-credit micro-credential proposals. We have a standard proposal form that all micro-credential creators must use. And one of the requirements of the proposal is that the creator must identify all industry-aligned learning outcomes and/or skills for career readiness competencies. So when the micro-credentials are approved by this committee, the new micro-credentials are reported out to the Senate, specifically to the Graduate Academic Council or the Undergraduate Academic Council as appropriate. And then that's ultimately reported out to the University Senate. Got the next slide? This is just some examples of recently approved for-credit micro-credentials at UAlbany, just to give you a flavor of what we've been doing recently. One very recent micro-credential that was approved is Financial Planning 1 and Financial Planning 2. These are both 9 credits, 3 courses, 9 credits each. And when a student or a community partner, a member in the workforce completes these 2 micro-credentials, it fulfills the formal education requirements for the National Certified Financial Planner, or CFP credential, and it provides the complete preparation necessary to sit for the CFP national exam. That comes out of our School of Business. Another one coming out of the School of Business, and these are graduate level micro-credentials, is the Cybersecurity Risk and Auditing. Completing this micro-credential prepares students to sit for the Certified Information Security Auditor exam. So clearly, these are things that are able to upskill an employee at their workplace. Another recent one from business is AI for Business, and this provides skill sets to leverage AI technologies to not only improve business processes, but to problem solve in areas like marketing, finance, cybersecurity, and accounting. And then the last one example here is a relatively new one at the undergraduate level in astroparticle physics. And this provides competencies in the interdisciplinary fields of astroparticle physics, general relativity, and cosmology. And these are stackable to the BS in physics. And I should have said too, the Financial Planning 1 and 2 is stackable to a concentration within our MBA degree. Next slide. This is just a few examples of some recent work we've been doing in the field of non-credit microcredentials, or what we're starting to call customized learning for members of the community, the local government, New York State government, because we're in the capital, and also industry partners in the area. And so one example is we're working with Broadview Federal Credit Union, whose headquarters is right across the street from our campus, to put together a customized learning collection for their employees to upskill and be able to elevate in the company. Our nanoscale science and engineering department is doing a lot in the field of semiconductors. And one of our local industries here, Global Foundries, is interested in teaching all of their employees, regardless of sort of their position in the company, about the semiconductor industry. And then lastly, we have our Atmospheric Science and Research Center here that has the New York State Mesonet, which is a statewide weather monitoring system. And we've created a not-for-credit microcredential introduction to weather data interpretation. And one of the local companies that's interested, for example, is Hudson Gas and Electric. So they can use the data from the Mesonet to better interpret and predict weather calamities or disasters. Next slide.
All right. And so in addition to the microcredentials for credit and the non-for-credit, we have UAlbany skills badges. This was, again, as we started to work with faculty and think about how we were going to be introducing these things and our role and mission as a university, a lot of a conversation revolved around what about our current students? How are we serving them? Are there ways that we can introduce microcredentials for them within the curriculum? So we started working on some industry-aligned content areas that were smaller in nature, so bite-sized, that could be stacked onto each other, developed by content experts, but also really looking at what was in demand by employers. What were they telling us? There were areas where they would like to see some additional skill building by our students, and what were some areas where students were looking for some opportunity to skill and to work out. So these are online self-paced courses that our students can sign up for at any time. So they're free to our students. There's a charge if non-UAlbany students want to take them. Typically, they take between 12 and 15 hours to complete. And at the end, there's a final project, which serves as one of the learning artifacts, demonstrating the skills and competencies. We use the badges, again, for all of our microcredentials, including our skills badges. So this does go on Credly, which maintains all of the metadata detailing what the learners have done to earn the credential themselves. One of the, I think, really interesting things that we've done with skills badges, we actually worked with the APLU USU project on a collaborative opportunity grant where we built out literacy badges for our incoming EOP students. So there was a collaboration between undergraduate education with our experiential learning opportunity and our EOP program that they still use to this day. So they use that for all of their incoming students, and those students receive the skills badges and hopefully, right, inspires them to continue working in different areas in these skills spaces. I think this is me too. So the newest microcredential. So Dr. Wagner had shown you some of the microcredentials that we've done to this point. As you know, UAlbany is heavily involved in expanding and exploring artificial intelligence across the curriculum. And so we have, of course, invested some time, some resources into building out AI microcredentials as well. And again, because it spans so interdisciplinary, spans so many different areas, the strategy was to build a 1-credit course followed by a 3-credit course with some more detail that would lead to a 4-credit microcredential. These are meant to be very high level. Any student, any individual from any area or any discipline, no background in computing or AI, can come in and take the sequence of these 2 courses and get a broad, general, high-level understanding of what is artificial intelligence, what are some of the issues that it is presenting, what are some of the challenges that we're facing, what are some of the applications, what is machine learning, what are some of the definitional components of what it is that we're doing, and this would then generate a fundamentals in artificial intelligence microcredential.
And we are now expanding this microcredential into the fundamentals of AI to a 7-credit microcredential in what we're calling AI in the specific disciplines across campus. So we were very fortunate to be able to use SUNY transformational funds to hire 27 tenure track faculty members in AI across all our schools and colleges and across all our disciplines. And that's given us the resources to be able to expand AI throughout the campus in what we call AI plus every discipline on campus. So every school and college is creating one or more 200 level courses in the use of AI technologies in their specific field. And an advisory committee has created universal learning objectives across the disciplines for all these 200 level classes. The content will be specific, but the learning objectives will be universal. And we're combining it with the micro-credential that Dr. Malatesta just described into the AI in the disciplines. So for example, AI in engineering, AI in health, AI in humanities, AI in natural science, AI in political science. You get the idea. And so we're just launching that now. We hope to have it off the ground in the fall. And so thank you for your attention, and thanks for letting us tell you a little bit about the growing area of micro-credentials at UAlbany.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Malatesta and Dr. Wagner. Hearing about the AI being distributed across the entire curriculum at UAlbany is very fascinating. So I'm looking forward to discussing that a little bit more towards the end. Thank you so much for your presentation. And we have one more speaker today who is likely a familiar face to many of you who have engaged in microcredential work. So please join me in welcoming Cynthia Proctor, who serves as our Director of Communications and Academic Policy Development here at SUNY System Administration, and has been closely involved from its inception in our micro-credential build out across the system. And she's going to share a little bit more about the SUNY resources that are available to you for launching or expanding micro-credentials on your campus. So Cindy, take it away.
Thanks, Casey. Thanks so much, everyone. It's always great to hear from campuses about the work that they're doing, and I'm so grateful that transformation funds were dedicated to micro-credential development. I have been studying this space since 2015, had the opportunity to travel across the country, or actually across the world, to see what other universities are doing. We were one of the first university systems in the country to develop a broad micro-credential policy. What you see here are sort of the core pillars of that policy, and both Canton and UAlbany presenters touched on it a little bit, but just for those of you who are building programs, or for those of you who developed policies in 2018-19, I encourage you to think about revisiting those policies. So much has changed in this space, especially in the last 18 months, and I'll touch on that a little bit. But I think first and foremost, our faculty were very committed to ensuring that micro-credentials were of high quality, the same quality as our certificate or degree programs. So our policy does require that both credit and non-credit micro-credentials go through faculty governance. It's to recognize substantial learning experiences. I do believe recognizing participation or community building are important things, but they're not micro-credentials. Right? So we recognize skills, knowledge, and experience. Has to be learning outcomes and assessments. There should be an example of student work product. New about a year ago is every micro-credential student, credit or non-credit, should be getting a SUNY Global ID so that they have access to the library, tutoring, etc. And our credit for prior learning policy at the system level was specifically revised to include micro-credentials. So looking at another way to give adult learners a jump start on credits needed to earn a micro-credential. Across the system, we've worked with upwards of 400 business and industry partners. I'm seeing some great patterns, more micro-credentials that bundle education and internships, more micro-credentials that bundle education and preparation for an industry or professional certification. We're also seeing growth in apprenticeships using credit-bearing micro-credentials as the required education component. Stackability is key to SUNY's policy, and it's interesting. I had someone ask me yesterday, I talk about that all the time, but what exactly am I talking about? And what we're really saying here is if you have a 9-credit baking micro-credential, that you could use those 9 credits to stack toward the culinary degree program, right? So it's taking the credits earned in your micro-credential to meet the credit requirements of a certificate or degree program. We have in our directory of micro-credentials today, credit-bearing micro-credentials and some non-credit-bearing micro-credentials, where the credits or the prior learning assessment can be used to meet requirements of everything from the certificate, associate, bachelor's, master's, advanced certificate, and then specialized degrees, the PhD, the DDS, the PharmD, the OD optometry, and the MD. We are very committed to portability. We have a process in place to ensure that micro-credentials are transcripted. It's very important for portability, as well as using a digital badge. And I'll share with you, I don't know if we'll get to it today, but I have a slide with information about pricing for Credly. We use Credly to recognize completion of a micro-credential. Multiple audiences. We've spent a lot of time at the beginning of this work really determining that we wanted to be broad and we wanted to serve as many audiences as possible, and campuses have done that. What we're seeing more now are campuses thinking about alumni and how campuses can provide them with the necessary professional development. Also reaching out to business and industry to think about upskilling, thinking about state agencies, and we've got some really a lot of success there that I'll talk about briefly. School districts, everything from micro-credentials for teachers to superintendents, and even community organizations. Just to give you a sense of where we are, the campus names in this hot pink color with a square are the campuses that have micro-credentials. So today we have, this number is a little outdated after all of the faculty senates had their last meetings of this semester. We're probably up over 600 micro-credentials now at 51 campuses. And soon that, by this time next year, that'll be 57 of 64 campuses with micro-credential programs. Each sector is a little bit different. The majority of our community colleges, it's almost 100% credit-bearing stackable micro-credentials. At our technology colleges, they're offering a few non-credit micro-credentials to offer specialized skills, but still most of them stackable. We're seeing more non-credit at our university centers targeting existing professionals. I wanted to mention state agencies. We were very fortunate to receive what was initially a $5 million grant from the New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities to upskill an existing state workforce. The title is Direct Support Professional. They work with people with developmental disabilities. That $5 million met with lots of success and lots of demand. That turned into $20 million additional dollars, and just recently $32 million. I thought being a millionaire would be a lot of fun. It is not. It's a lot of hard work. But this program, which we will be spreading to 21 campuses, all offering micro-credentials, a little bit different, each one, but they all upskill the same community to a national certification standard. This is something that other state agencies are watching very closely. I've had conversations with New York Power Authority, with Department of Transportation, with Office of Children and Family Services. This type of cooperation across campuses, I think, is really important, and I think probably a sign of good things to come for us. I didn't have a lot of time to show you this, but I'm previewing at the right what our new micro-credential website is going to look like. And each micro-credential will have its own page that answers some of the key questions, as Peggy mentioned, that we get from the 10,000 unique users who sign on to SUNY's micro-credential directory every month right now. How much does it cost? How long does it take to complete? If there's credits, what is it giving me credit toward? And is it available fully online? You can see that we'll mention if a micro-credential is part of a series, if it features an industry certification, if there's available grant funding. Our descriptions are designed to talk about exactly what a student can do with a micro-credential, particularly if they're a non-matriculated student. How can it get them to be ready for a job or to advance in a job? We're using AI to run descriptions and course descriptions to identify essential skills. We feature them. We list what the programs the micro-credential is stackable to. What you can't see at the bottom is we list faculty. We list links to the campus's full page. On every page, we have a request for information link, which should be linking to a standalone request for information page on your website. And we want to be as close as possible as we can to a one-click registration button. We still have campus micro-credential pages where there is no information about where a student should register or what they should do if they're interested, right? Just because we've built it doesn't mean they're going to come. We have to give them access. Part of the new website rollout, which we're anticipating at the end of this month, will be to ensure that campuses have some of those things in place. Very quickly, a couple of other new opportunities. We were invited by the New York State Department of Labor to include SUNY micro-credentials in the New York State Virtual Career Center. It is an AI-driven tool for folks who are unemployed, for folks who have been laid off, for folks who have registered with the Department of Labor that either they're working or not, but they want to change. What it does is it assesses the skills a person has by reading their resume or having them answer a series of questions. It then asks the person what job they want. This AI system will list those skills. It'll identify where the skills gap is, and it'll pop up and say, well, good news, SUNY has a micro-credential that can help you meet those skills. Again, that's why it's so important that we have clear skills for each one of our micro-credentials. There are requirements. This is what the Department of Labor wanted. Credit bearing, stackable. Taking the micro-credential on its own has to be enough to prepare a learner to get a job or advance in a job. Well, where did they get that from? Well, they got it from the new category of part-time TAP for non-degree credentials that was just launched this past semester. We worked really, really hard to get funding for micro-credential students. This is for non-matriculated students, but there are some conditions, as there are with every piece of legislation, I suppose, right? It has to be a significant industry in New York State related to it, and that's, you know, pretty clear. I can't think of too many of our micro-credentials that wouldn't do that. Right now, it's at community colleges and technology colleges. We, along with HASC and CUNY, are advocating to expand that to all campus sectors. So we hope that that will be coming in the next budget cycle. Again, stackability is required. It has to either be a credit-bearing micro-credential that's stackable, or if it's non-credit, it also has to be, the student has to be awarded credit upon matriculation, either through a PLA process or internal articulation agreement. And again, the criteria has to prepare someone to get a job or advance in a job. I have to give a huge shout out to our governmental affairs team here, Jamie Frank, the chancellor. Once this got put in the part-time TAP category, the income eligibility requirements dated back to the 70s. We're very fortunate just a few weeks ago to find out that they have been lifted, increased. So I think this program will serve as a resource for more of our students. And I think I'm probably running out of time, but I'm just going to show you what's in this deck really quickly. And then when it gets sent out to you, I hope you'll send me questions. We do have a pricing agreement with Credly. This is much lower than the market rate. There are also more pricing tiers available than what you would get if you just contacted Credly off the bat. We've provided some guidance about marketing websites, one-click registration. I have more tools for that, so always happy to work with you on that. And then finally, data collection. We are collecting micro-credential data, credit and non-credit in Banner. We still have a few campuses that haven't got that set up yet. I urge you to do that. The SICA Center is willing to help those with Banner. For those with PeopleSoft or other programs, I have some other resources that can help you. And I'll stop there.
Well, thank you so much, Cindy. And we're doing great on time, actually. So I want to thank our colleagues from Canton and UAlbany for sharing just how their micro-credential work has helped build out economic mobility for students through transformation funding. And at this time, I'd like to ask Jen Snyder from CPD to kind of help with our Q&A logistics, because there are quite a few of us. So Jen, if you can just give us some guidance on how you'd like that to function, and then we'll open up the floor.
Absolutely. We do have some questions in the chat, so please feel free to continue to use the chat for that. Like Casey said, we do have a good amount of time to get through those. If you would like to come off mute and ask the question, please raise your hand, and that will allow us to see you and kind of stay in some order there. Also, we welcome you to go off, turn your camera on so we can feel a little bit more collaborative in this space. And I did spotlight our speakers so that you can see who's speaking when answering the question. So any one of those is a good way to get started here.
So I think I have a list of questions here from the chat, so perhaps I'll start with those. But if you have questions, please do feel free to raise your hand, and we can go back and forth. But I'll start with our first question that was posed by Michael from Morrisville, and he asked, I think it was directed towards UAlbany, but feel free, anyone from UAlbany or Canton, to answer this. But when you were putting together your micro-credentials, did you get a sense of the types of students, or the profile or the demographic profile of students who've started to utilize the micro-credential programs? Are they unique in any way or distinct from the general population?
I can maybe address that, although not very satisfactorily. It's a fantastic question, and I think we just haven't been tracking it long enough to know that. I think many of our students, we build these micro-credentials with existing courses. So many of our students, I think, are using them toward this, the stackability of them towards a degree. But in terms of demographics, that's a great question. I think we've just gotten the technological ability to track those students in those micro-credentials. And I think we'll definitely focus on that in the future.
Thank you so much. And Donna asked, this one's for Cindy Proctor. Is there a process for external partners to put micro-credential needs to system to then be guided to campuses?
Sure. Up until now, we've been doing a few things, working with the Business Council of New York State and NIATAP, regular presentations, regular info sessions. I host between 6 to 8 30-minute info sessions for businesses each year. Those are broadly publicized by the Business Council, by NIATAP. But the good news is, with our new website, and I'm knocking on wood that it's going to launch by the end of this month, is we actually have a For Partners page right now. But we will have a better For Partners page and on every at the bottom of every page, there will be an opportunity for businesses to reach out. I found that right now, if I get an inquiry, I can do a blast to all campuses and see who's interested, because sometimes even if a campus doesn't have micro-credentials in that space right now, they could be working on it. And so I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible. That's how we got 21 campuses to respond to the OPWDD program. But so good news is we have a process in place that's going to get even better with our new website. And of course, we'll continue to maintain the relationships with also chambers of commerce I'm regularly in touch with to try to make sure, and local workforce investment boards to try to make sure that we keep micro-credentials at top of mind.
Thank you, Cindy. So maybe this question I'll direct to the Canton folks. Regarding assessment of micro-credentials, do you do it in the same way that your course assessment happens? Is there anything different about the way your assessment of student learning outcomes is different for your micro-credentials? And also, have you found anything through those assessments that have caused you to kind of redirect in any way or make any types of curricular changes?
Well, I'll start, and Liz, you can add to it. You know, because like UAlbany, our micro-credentials are based on existing courses. All of our existing courses are well integrated into the assessment framework of the college. So they're assessed at the course, the program, and also the institutional level on a recurring basis. Putting them together with any unique learning outcomes from the micro-credentials themselves. I think, Liz, can you best address that?
Sure. Some of the ones that we've had changes to courses as they go through assessment, we have changed a few of our credit-bearing micro-credentials. One specifically we're going to be changing this next year is medical coding, just based on changes in the courses, feedback from students who've gone through, they've become employed in the field. It's causing us to switch around some content and switch around some of the courses that we'll be offering. On the non-credit side, we've also sent some of our instructors through whatever the certification is at the end. That our participants will hopefully have the information and knowledge to complete that certification exam. So we're an example of that is this summer, one of our automotive employees is going through an EV certification for one of our upcoming non-credit micro-credentials. And that way he'll be able to bring that information back to his credit-bearing class. We'll be able to tweak some of that and then make changes for both the credit and the non-credit micro-credential.
Thank you. So if anybody would like to raise their hand, I'm sorry, Cindy, were you going to add something?
I just wanted to add one thing to that. So one of the things I've been encouraging campuses to do in their micro-credential forms that faculty complete, especially if a micro-credential is going to be open to non-matriculated students. Yes, every course already has learning outcomes, but let's think about why in particular, we bundled these courses together. And I know in a lot of cases, campuses have created a new course or tweaked a course to make it be part of this bundle. And so I do think it's important for us to look at the learning outcomes for the micro-credential as a whole. And I think that assessing whether or not our students have met that particular set of learning outcomes is essential to us being able to assess this program. So one of the things that some of the newer campuses that are coming on board, you know, trying to share lessons learned, but is to even incorporate that into the forms, right? Think about the learning outcomes for this set of instruction.
Does anyone from the audience have questions? Please feel free to raise your hand or unmute. Oh,
no, somebody else. I have 3 more questions, but I want to give others. This is such a great topic, by the way, and such a wonderful presentation. So, but please, Sheila, I see you have your hand up.
My question was answered. We're trying to figure out about how to do the banner for non-cred. It's been a little struggle, so I see the link's going to be in the file, so I'll send that on to our workforce people. Thanks.
Yeah, for anyone who has Banner, I mean, we have it made, right? We have a system that will do applications, registration, reporting to IR, transcripting, and scribing in degree works. You're not on Banner, it's not as easy, but you know, we're getting there. But if you're a Banner campus, no problem. And Seeker Center is also very expert at this now, so can also help for a very low cost because they can do it pretty quickly.
Other questions? I also have a large list of questions. I didn't want to. I want to take advantage of this opportunity of the expertise we have in the room. I guess I'll ask one, and then Donna, you can ask one of yours if we don't get any other questions. But maybe Canton, can you tell us a little bit more about your micro courses? Maybe just just briefly, like how long are they? What do they cost? And is there any faculty involvement in those? Are these like little lunch and learns, or are they a little bit more sophisticated than that?
So the micro course Mondays happen every Monday at 3 p.m. They're 1 hour long. We typically run them through the semester. We take a few weeks off. We run some through the summer. We've tied that into our EOP programming as well in the summer. And then we pick up again in the fall. They are, for the most part, faculty driven because they're linking back to our credit bearing courses or micro-credentials and programs. Faculty have agreed to present that topic for pretty much two reasons. One is we do address that as university service when they're talking or putting together their portfolio for promotion or reappointment. And the second is a lot of these classes that we've coupled together for micro-credentials are electives. And as we're looking at streamlining course offerings, this is a great way to get that information out there to drive interest and then be able to offer those electives on a more continuous basis. So we've had great faculty involvement in offering them. We have tried to pull in some community members as well on various topics with sustainability, but for the most part, they're faculty driven.
We do occasionally get some offerings from staff at the college. Last summer, we had a couple that were offered by the head chef of our food services on campus that were extraordinarily well attended. I think the lure there is that if you come for one, you might come for more. It was very enjoyable and got rave reviews.
So I just want to quickly scan the room, Casey. I'll ask my questions quickly, but are you sure nobody else wants to come off mute? Because with this incredible wealth of knowledge here, I could spend the rest of the afternoon talking to these ladies. So thank you. I have a general question about at your this is specifically for Albany and Canton. Have you found that kind of or Cindy, you can answer this too. Has the kind of proliferation of micro-credentials, both the credit and the non-credit, but in particular the credit offerings, become integrated into your enrollment management strategies? Is it something you're actively promoting to the prospective student about why they should come to your campus? Or Cindy, you might have examples from across the university, but it seems like these are incredible things that a prospective student would be very interested in knowing about if they were considering coming to your campus. I was just wondering if you could speak at all to how that's become part of your enrollment strategies.
So I'll let Chris jump in on the grad level and the micro-credential piece. On the skills badges side, one of the things that we've used it actually for is re-enrollment. So we have, attrition obviously every semester, and there are students that leave for various reasons. And this is an opportunity or a way to start to bring them back in to re-entice them to rejoin the university. And so we have noticed that a good portion of the students taking our skills badges are re-enrolling or readmitted students. So it's been an interesting lift there with them.
And I could just add a little bit of the grad level. Micro-credentials are an enticement for potential master students, especially those that I described, like in the business school, where completion of these micro-credentials prepare you to sit for a national exam, which gives you a credential that you can use in your career later on. So those definitely are recruitment tools.
And Donna, I'll just add,
Casey.
oh, sorry, go ahead, Peggy, please.
No, go ahead, Cindy.
I was just going to say that I have presented to our admissions officers and our VPs for enrollment. And I think that promoting micro-credentials in existing degree programs is a great recruitment tool. And also, as JoAnne alluded to, you know, there are lots of folks, prospective students who talk to us and then maybe even register, but then they can't enroll. Something happens, life happens, right? Using a micro-credential in the degree program where they're interested in, especially if we can offer that online, can be a great way to keep that student connected. I would also love to see, and this is happening on some campuses, our enrollment management offices really going after adult learners and trying to, and consistent with Chancellor's goals, trying to reach more New Yorkers and bring them into the system through a micro-credential. And so we definitely have some more work to do on that end, but I think that's essential practice. So something that we'll keep working on.
And then my last question is, oh, sorry, go ahead, Casey.
No, go ahead.
My last question is just about balancing. Like, I'm very impressed by the really clear, like, faculty ownership and the fact that you've really respected that shared governance process. I guess this is more of like a macro question about balancing kind of the faculty ownership dimension of micro-credentials with kind of more of the, you know, university partnership dimension, like how to balance those two. It seems to me those are very copacetic, but you have to work towards them. But I just was curious, like how those two dimensions of micro-credentials are balanced, and is there space for both? Hopefully there is.
Well, I think I'll go first. I think on a campus like Canton, as a College of Technology, all of our programs work very closely with their advisory boards. And this has been a point of mutuality among our faculty and our industry advisors. You know, that our advisors are often the ones who are suggesting micro-credentials and are familiar enough with our curricula to look at it and say, you know, give some advice on how it can fit. I think the opportunity to develop micro-credentials also, our faculty have found it keeps them fresh, it keeps them current, it keeps them, you know, basically on point with industry standards because they provide a way to try something, you know, so to speak, as it's integrated into the campus. And I think with respect to the previous question, you know, our students, again, consistent with our mission, it is to provide them with workforce readiness upon graduation. And increasingly, I think in today's economy, a major is not enough. An internship, applied learning is not enough. And having the ability to earn extra credentials that are documented on their transcripts and through their badges, whether it's within their major that highlights a particular skill set, or whether it's in a related major that provides them with a useful skill that gives them that edge. I think is one of the reasons why we're finding faculty increasingly on our campus are more and more excited about micro-credentials. And I think probably, Liz, you'll agree, within about the last year or so, have really kind of gotten it and are enthusiastic partners when it comes to developing micro-credentials.
So we're actually perfect on time here. So as a reminder, I just want to tell everyone that we do have 2 more sessions as part of this series currently on the books. On June 27th, we're going to have a session on transfer partnerships. That's going to be regarding key findings from a national study on transfer effectiveness. And we're going to hear from some folks at the Aspen Institute and Columbia University. Also, July 24th, we're going to have a session on the SUNY pilot that was focused on enhancing SNAP access and reducing food insecurity for SUNY students. We're going to hear from speakers with the Benefits Data Trust who are closely involved in this work. There's also going to be an evaluation of this series, so I hope that we will take a few moments to respond to the evaluation once that's sent out. That's also going to include a copy of the PowerPoint slides from today, as well as the recording. And once again, huge thank you to our presenters today. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you all so much for attending as well. I would like to hand it over to Donna Linderman, Senior Vice Chancellor for Student Success here at System, to just close us out with a few words.
Thank you. I'll make this super brief. I echo Casey's thanks. Absolutely outstanding presentation. You guys set the bar very high. We hope that the attendees will join us for our other sessions. Just a reminder, the community of practice is really intended to marshal internal expertise from within the university to inform broad areas that are being funded by the Transformation Fund, so that people can learn from one another and ask questions of their colleagues, and to marshal external experts in areas that are also being supported or are related to already funded areas. We welcome suggestions. We've scripted out the summer based on your feedback. We hope to put a full calendar together for next academic year, and very much welcome suggestions. I ran a similar series to this within the CUNY system when I was Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, and I think there's nothing like hearing from your peers and near peers from outside the system. So please don't be shy about making recommendations or giving us feedback. So thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.